Do you know that feeling where you just want to squeeze your partner's guts out? Welcome to Worldly Families. I'm Justine Janae. Traveling to over 40 countries and living abroad has opened my eyes to new ways of being and doing. I'm all about helping you expand your horizons so you can live and parent more intentionally and more joyfully. In this video, we're talking adult relationships, and I'm going to give you some tips that have worked for my husband Kenny and I to overcome some crazy obstacles and build the relationship of our dreams. First, a high-level background on our relationship so you understand the context of how we learned how to do these things and why they're so important. We met in 2013 at Oracle. We started dating very soon thereafter when I was 25 and he was 27 years old. A few months later, we went home for Christmas together. My family loved him. They were like, "You're the most natural you've ever been around any guy." I kind of freaked out because for various reasons at the time, I was a bit of a commitment phobe. And so I was like, oh my gosh, he might be the one, we should break up. So we broke up on January 1st of 2014. And about 6 months later, I found out that I was 6 months pregnant, which is a whole nother story for a whole nother day. So Kenny and I decided to move in together and co-parent and just figure our relationship out later, but put the baby first. We're like, let's take it slow and just start dating again from ground zero. That ended up working out really well. We were still madly in love, and we had our baby daughter, Autumn. The next few years were pretty blissful, those early days of a relationship when you're young and you don't have much, but life is simple and it's just joyful being together. Then in 2017, I started my MBA program at Duke while I was the president and chief happiness officer of a startup called Brain Juice. So I was juggling a lot. I was traveling internationally for 2 or 3 weeks at a time every 3 months, and Kenny was an amazing dad, taking Autumn all by himself during those times. People often ask me, who has your kid, your mom? And it's like, no, her other parent. Anyway, so that year, we went an entire 8.5 months without a single date night. Love is not enough to sustain a relationship. There's got to be compatibility, and there has to be time spent together and effort invested in the relationship to make it work. Basically, we didn't know that. We had to learn that the hard way, and our relationship just sort of disintegrated. It became very transactional. It was about the kids, the activities, the stuff, and not about the love and the connection. So in January of 2018, we broke up. And it was heart-wrenching and terrible because we were still super in love, but there were things that we needed to accomplish in life, and Kenny had things to work on in his career, and I had always been curious about dating women, and I wanted to get to know that part of myself. And you know, we met when we were a boy and a girl, and we needed this time kind of to ourselves to transition into being a man and a woman. So we got that time, and toward the end of the year when Autumn was turning 4, we were together for her birthday, and it was just so clear and obvious that we were just still so madly in love. And it just seemed silly that we couldn't make it work. So we decided, okay, let's educate ourselves. Let's get smart about this. How do people do relationships really successfully? There's got to be a formula, right? So I read a ton of books, one of which was The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. There's also Happy Together, which is a more recent one, but I love that one too. We got a lot of insights out of that. It's been a continual journey and process to learn how to be a good partner. Hey y'all, as I'm sitting here editing this, I realized that I forgot the end of the story, which is that in 2018 and 2019, we focused a lot and put up a ton of effort into building a really solid foundation for our relationship. And when we felt like it was really rock solid, then we decided to have another baby. And in August of 2020, I gave birth to a little boy named Onyx. And then we felt like we were ready to take the leap and get married after 2 kids and 2 breakups and 2 getting back togethers. So we got married in May of 2021, fortunately timed during a lull in COVID, and we've just been I mean, I hate to say living happily ever after, but we're a happy little family nowadays. And so grateful for all of the trials and tribulations that got us to this point and made us even stronger. I want to share some of those things with you because it's really been a night and day difference from the way that we used to relate to the way that we relate today. And I'm so grateful for all of these new habits and ways of being that we've implemented because we're just so happy. All that said, let's dive into the relationship tips. Tip 1, weekly date nights. Kenny and I promised each other when we got back together that we would do a weekly date night, time just for us to connect. And if we couldn't afford a fancy schmancy date night out with a babysitter and all of that, we would do a date night in, playing board games or watching a movie or whatever tickled our fancy. Even more importantly, on these date nights, we cultivate hygge, which is this psychological space of coziness and fun and connectedness, and we don't talk about career, work, parenting, anything that's nagging on us. Tip 2, decompression walks. So when do we talk about all of that stuff? When do we have our gripe sessions? And when do we vent to each other? Well, Kenny and I started going on these decompression walks around our neighborhood. So after the kids went down, our friends, the Carrolls, who are godparents to the kids, suggested this because they used to do it. You put one of your cell phones by the door of the kids' room on speaker, and then you bring the other cell phone with you on speaker. So you can kind of use it as like a long distance baby monitor. And we're not walking far from the house. The kids are already asleep. If anyone wakes up, the baby wakes up and cries, you hear it immediately. You're home within like a minute. But that allowed us to have some time where we're getting outside in nature, getting fresh air, and just checking in with each other. What's on your mind? What's been bothering you? How can we tackle this? What's next in your career? How can I support you? Those kinds of logistical questions and just emotional venting and just being able to connect and see what's present for the other person. Tip 3, couples counseling. Another thing we decided to do when we got back together was to go to couples counseling together. So we went monthly for a number of months at the beginning, and it was really helpful just to have this outside person. We didn't even have anything necessarily that was wrong in our relationship, but having this coach to help you learn how to communicate better or to notice patterns in the way that you interact with each other that you can both work on was really, really helpful. And after a few months, our therapist was like, well, you guys could come back for maintenance, but you're good. Like, we had learned the tools that we needed. Tip 4, conversation cards. One thing that we love to do either on a date night or sometimes we'll just do one card at night before bed is to connect with these conversation cards. There's a couple we really like. Vertellus is one, and The And is another one. The And has a ton, actually both of them now have a ton of different editions for this, but we really love the couples edition long term from The And. These get deep. And it's actually really amazing because when you've been with somebody for 8, 9, 10, 20 years, you feel like you know everything about them. But these conversation cards prompt you to think of other things or dig up things either from your past or that you're feeling deep down now, or hopes and dreams that you don't talk about on a daily basis when you feel like you already know somebody. Tip 5, intentional technology. We're very intentional about our use of our phones and TV, any kind of technological device. So you're never going to see Kenny and I laying in bed scrolling next to each other. That just doesn't happen. We try to keep our electronics out of the bedroom completely, although COVID kind of put a wrench in that because it's also now our office. At least at night, we do shut down complete on our electronic devices and we try and keep them downstairs so it's not even tempting to wake up in the morning and first thing go to your phone. And not having the technology in there also creates this cozy kind of hygge environment where you just feel more inclined to connect and turn toward one another instead of turning away toward your phone. Tip 6, open communication. When Kenny and I got back together, we decided to talk about everything. People we had dated when we were apart, just anything and everything we were feeling. And that was scary to go all in on. It's scary to tell things like that to your partner. But the amazing thing, the amazing result of that is once we worked through processing everything the other person had said, it opened up this new way of communicating for us that we've had ever since. And it taught us to listen from this place of love and compassion as opposed to a place of fear or defensiveness or anger. Because every time that we've communicated really openly and honestly, no matter what was said, the fact that we were able to say it to each other brought us closer together. So now we can talk about people we have crushes on or are attracted to or whatever, and it's all good. It's like, yeah, because you're a human and I'm a human, and let's not pretend we're not humans. Tip 7, do the inner work. We are both very committed to doing the work and the self-development to become better people. So we're constantly trying to find our blind spots and not only shore up our weaknesses, but also build on our strengths and just become the fully most flourishing version of ourselves that we can be, not only for ourselves, but that's how we want to show up for each other and for our family. So when you're both committed to that path of growth, it really helps the relationship because you're on the same page. And when your partner brings up something that might have been a blind spot for you, like, hey, Justine, have you noticed that you have this pattern of behavior? And if so, is that something you want to continue doing, or do you want to shift that? It becomes a conversation of how can I support you, and less a conversation of attack and blame and defensiveness. That commitment to inner growth is really what helps you change the way that you listen from, no, I don't even know what you're saying yet, but I know that I feel attacked and I don't agree, to, okay, there could be a really good golden nugget in here for me. Let me lean into this and really hear what you're saying. And even if you don't say it with the perfect words, let me try and listen to the meaning behind what you're trying to convey, and then see which parts of that ring true and what I can work on from here. Side note, if you're liking my content, please like and comment below letting me know what resonates and what you'd like to hear more of. It would really help me out. Tip 8, outserve each other. This one is borrowed from Happy Together, which is one of my favorite relationship books ever, but they suggest that you be in a constant friendly competition to outserve one another. So I may go, oh, Kenny's really been cooking dinner every single night and doing the dishes some nights even, which isn't really the arrangement. I'm gonna go above and beyond. I'm gonna not only do the dishes, but I'm also gonna take out the trash for him. Or he's the one who always cleans the bathroom. I'm gonna surprise him and clean the bathroom. Like, ha ha ha, 1 point for me. And he's the same way with me. Like, oh, I know that she was really bugged by the sheets being dirty. Like, I'm gonna clean them and surprise her by putting clean sheets on the bed. It's knowing what the other person's love language is and then doing things to make them feel loved in the way that they feel loved. Tip 9, greet one another. Funny backstory on this one is before Kenny and I got married, I was feeling very nervous about just marriage in general. And so my MBA analytical mind was like, I can figure this out. I went on an interviewing spree. I interviewed a bunch of people who had been happily married for decades and decades. And of course, I found some of the common themes like trust and communication. But one new tip that stood out to me was to greet one another when you see each other for the first time after a long day at work or whatever it may be. And the reason was because it can sometimes become sort of rote, or you just take the other person for granted. And her advice was to, instead of just when the other person comes home being like doing something and you're just like, hey, to actually look up, go to the door, maybe give them a kiss, say, hey, nice to see you, like, I'm so glad you're home. And just that little moment, even if it's 10 seconds or 30 seconds of connection and acknowledging the person. It's like how you would treat a friend that you like. Your friend comes over, you wouldn't be like, hey, you would go and say hi to your friend and give them a hug. So treat your partner like you would treat your friend, even if it's been 20, 30, 40, 50 years together, like it had been for this person that I talked to. Tip 10, laugh together. For me personally, I want to have fun in my relationship. That's a huge part of a relationship in the first place. So Kenny and I do our best to find ways to get in that playful headspace where we're just laughing together. We go to comedy clubs, we find shows that we both think are hilarious. We look up until our abs hurt from laughing or we have tears in our eyes, just spend as much time as you can carve out in that place. And that on top of all of the other tips that kind of hit at the deeper levels of support and trust and communication, and you are going to have an incredible relationship. These are 10 of the tips that Kenny and I have implemented to build a rock solid relationship. We know it's not always going to be rainbows and puppy dogs, but we have the tools we need now to ride out those tougher times together. And we have done it. So please comment below and let me know if you have any other tips, because I'm always trying to learn and absorb and try out new things. So I'd really appreciate that too. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this is helpful. I'll see you in the next video. P.S. This video is dedicated to Kenny. You are the best partner and teammate I could have ever imagined for this crazy game called life. I love playing it with you. I am so happy to have you as my partner. I love you, Kenny.